Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spar&Brawl. So there were some interesting developments in UK politics. So Sam, why don't you tell us what's been going on?
Sure, yeah, I thought this was worth paying attention to a little bit. We had this week Dominic Cummings come out basically against Boris Johnson's government, Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock, the minister responsible for health, Secretary of State for Health specifically. Dominic Cummings, as I think we have covered in our previous videos before, is somebody who the establishment media hates in the UK. He was a leading advisor to Johnson's campaign for prime ministerialship, and he was the guy behind the Brexit campaign. And a lot of people credit him with causing Brexit and his methods of using online data and all that, which I think is exaggerated and bullshit. And they made a relatively good movie, to be fair, that he's the leading character in. Benedict Cumberbatch plays him, which is a, you know, huge, like his real face is not as good. But yeah, so Dominic Cummings has this background. He's this Brexiteer that hates the establishment sort of as well. And then a couple of months ago, he fell out with Johnson. He basically fell out with Johnson's girlfriend. Apparently, there are these different factions within the prime minister's campaign, and one of the most important one is the one led by his girlfriend. And he got him and one of his closest allies, they got kicked out, basically, pretty much. I mean, they said they resigned and all that, but it was there was bad blood between them. So now this is sort of seen as his revenge. Oh, it's worth mentioning right now, by the way, during the COVID lockdown, even though he was part of the government and part of the people who wrote the rules and regulations, he apparently there was all these rumors about him breaking the rules, traveling to his mother's house in the north or his parents' house, and then going for an eye test. He gave an explanation. I think everybody agreed the explanation was bullshit. And so he did break the lockdown rules, and that was a big deal for a lot of people. And they attacked him on that a lot. But anyways, he attacked the Johnson government, and he was questioned about government's COVID plan. He said there was pretty much no COVID plan, and they made it up as they went along. Which, even though I think he's got an axe to grind, I think it kind of what he was saying kind of. From what I remember from reality, it does make sense.
I feel like that's the
So
case with every country, though.
yeah,
There
exactly.
wasn't really a plan in place.
That was actually the response from majority of the public, according to the polls. That yeah, like it didn't really negatively affect the government, his attacks, because everybody felt like yeah, but but he got very personal with Johnson and with Matt Hancock. He said Matt Hancock should have been fired like 15 times or 20 times, and he would he said that the British system, he said that the cabinet secretary, I think, told him that the British system was not designed for a minister to lie to this extent and this often, meaning Matt Hancock. He gave a couple of specific examples regarding the PPA, like the personal equipments that he had promised that they would be delivered or will be removed, but they weren't. And there was also his promise about testing elderly before going back to the care homes, which led to a lot of deaths, which which apparently, well, not apparently, he failed. Like, well, Cummings says that he made the promise to the prime minister himself, but uh, you know, uh, who knows? Maybe it was a verbal promise. So he attacked Matt Hancock very much personally, and he got to Boris Johnson in that way. He said that the reason why they kept him, why they didn't fire him, was that his advisors, uh, other advisors of Boris Johnson's, were telling him that whenever things go wrong at the end, and in the end, whenever there is an inquiry into COVID response and all that, he would be a great person to basically to to fall on this sword, sort of a scapegoat. Basically, they kept Matt Hancock as a scapegoat for, whenever there's a public inquiry into the response and all that, sort of somebody to push the blame on, And by the way, it's worth mentioning he's the only person who was a Remainer during the Brexit campaign. He was for UK remaining, so Cummings doesn't like him, uh, on that front as well. But I would say it definitely makes sense because I do think Matt Hancock is one of the most empty politicians you can meet. Like, does not have any, like, his sentences are, it's almost like an auto response from a computer. Most of his sentences in an interview, and he's just your typical, very typical urban Tory sort of. I don't know. It's just, yeah. I think Dominic Cummings has an axe to grind, and a lot of analysts have pointed out that he doesn't criticize Michael Gove, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, and even praises them in parts. So he and Michael Gove was pretty much as much responsible for the health response as Matt Hancock, and Rishi Sunak was actually, for example, in the case of second lockdown, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak was in favor of opening sooner, while Matt Hancock was in favor of keeping the lockdown. So in some cases, you could say Matt Hancock was actually more effective or more correct. So Dominic Cummings is definitely coming at this at an angle. But I do think it was very correct. Like, I think the description is correct that Boris Johnson is basically keeping Matt Hancock there in case, like, for when things go wrong. Oh, it was this guy. This guy was handling the call. Oh my God, I can't believe this idiot. Because sometimes, I've had this experience even at work that and I've read about it in history, politics, and all that. You keep people around that lie to you on. It's like lawyers that in movies you see that they say you don't want, like, or your advisors that tell you, oh, you don't want me to tell you how I'm doing this, but you want this to happen. Like, sometimes you want people there that lie to you because then you want to blame them, or the people who put basically distance between you and responsibility. I don't think if you're prime minister, to be honest, a health minister uh, sort of negates any responsibility from you. But I think that's the ultimate purpose of Matt Hancock and people like him. Sadly, but if he becomes the prime minister, that would be wow. I would be proven. Although Theresa May became a prime minister, she was pretty empty.